I'm going to jump right into our study. We are today in Genesis chapter 41, and this is a long chapter, but it produces a lot of very beneficial information for us. Genesis chapter 41 is probably the pivotal point in Joseph's life, the crucial point in Joseph's life. We're making our way through his life. We've seen the trauma, the difficulties, the sorrows, the heartaches, and today we get to see a pivot. We get to see a change in what's going on in his life. It's really interesting. You may say, okay, well, this pivotal point then certainly has to do with the fact that Joseph gets out of prison. He's no longer a slave. But you may be surprised to find out that that's not the pivotal point. That's not the crucial point. You say, okay, well, it is that the way God is going to use him, he's going to end up physically saving the nation of Israel from starvation. And yes, that's greatly important, but I would submit to you that that is not the crucial point in this story. You say, well, okay, it goes beyond Egypt then, because literally a lot of the known world is going to come to Egypt for help and for food during this time. And so he not only is going to physically save the people of Egypt, but he's also going to save a lot of people from the known world. And I would tell you, yes, that's important, and we're getting to the crucial point when we talk about that, but actually that's not it either. You say, okay, well, then it has to be that he's going to save his family. I mean, part of this group, this nearly worldwide group that is going to be spared from famine and starvation, is including his family. And so that's the crucial point. And yes, that is definitely a greatly important thing. But the crucial point comes even beyond that, because it's not just the fact that Joseph is going to, through his obedience and faithfulness and loyalty to God, that he is going to save so many people from devastation, from the famine, but that the bloodline that would later produce the Messiah, Jesus Christ, would come through his own family. Okay, so he's sparing people this physical trauma, this physical pain and suffering through starvation. He's doing all that, and that's greatly important, but the fact that Joseph's obedience to God is also going to spare the bloodline that would one day bring the Messiah. It means that Joseph gives comfort here and now, in his time, here and now, but also now, thousands of years later, we are still benefactors of Joseph's obedience in difficult times. Now, that's what I want us to get in our minds today. That hard times come. This life is filled with them. But God wants to take that which we did to ourselves or that which someone else has done to us, the evil of man, and use it to orchestrate his plan. We talked about this last week, and I want to reiterate it again because it's vital here. That God's presence in your life, and if you're a child of God, you have the presence of God in your life. God's presence in your life cannot be separated from the purpose of God in your life. That God's presence in your life means that God's plan and God's purpose is being carried out in your life. You can't separate them. God's presence equals His purpose being carried out. It wasn't that God was so concerned about the comfort of Joseph. Now, you look back and you understand Joseph didn't get a lot of comfort. He went through some devastating times: betrayal, slavery, being lied upon, imprisonment, being forgotten in prison. All of these things happened in his life. You wouldn't look back and say, well, God is making him so comfortable. But the thing is, God wasn't so concerned with his comfort as he was with preparing him for what was to come. Salvation of the world. Physically, the salvation of those who would put their faith and trust in Jesus Christ. Spiritually, even in our day and time now. It's huge. Huge. So when we left off last week in chapter 40, we saw that Joseph had interpreted the dreams for the chief cupbearer and the chief baker of Pharaoh. And he gave a very good response, a very good interpretation to the cupbearer, a very bad one to the baker. The baker was going to be hung in 3 days, and that ended up happening. The chief cupbearer, though, he said, you're going to be restored to your position, and when you are, remember me. Now, that seems like a very simple thing to do. I am here unjustly. I have not done anything to have been sold into slavery. I've not done anything to be in this pit, in this dungeon, and therefore, when you get out, please talk to Pharaoh on my behalf. The story, in chapter 40, that part of his life ends with the understanding that the cupbearer forgot Joseph. I can't imagine that, except to say, this is also part of God's plan. There's going to come a time when God's plan is going to be carried out more fully. It's going to be more visible for Joseph, and he needs to be exactly where Pharaoh can get in touch with him. If he gets released when cupbearer does, he tells Pharaoh and he says, go and get this innocent man out of prison, and Joseph is released. He goes back to his family. Pharaoh may not be able to get to him. The plan of God is disturbed, and therefore God, in his supreme knowledge and supreme understanding, keeps Joseph exactly where he needs to be in order to complete and fulfill the plan of God. Okay, so this is vital. You say, Joseph's still in prison? He's still in prison, but he's exactly where he needs to be. The presence of God equals the purpose of God being carried out and fulfilled in Joseph's life. It's the same for every child of God. So we come now to chapter 41, and we see the extent of this forgetfulness. Now, let me read to you just 4 words here from the very first verse of chapter 41. It says, after 2 whole years, 2 years, the cupbearer has forgotten Joseph for 2 whole years. 2 additional years after interpreting the dreams and asking the cupbearer to get him out of prison, Joseph is still in prison. It's horrible. Let's read on. Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile, and behold, there came up out of the Nile 7 cows, attractive and plump. I've got to stop there because that just sounds weird. Have you ever been driving down the road and passing a field where there were a group of cows, and you say, honey, look over there. You see that brown and white? That's an attractive cow. You know it? You probably in your life have never said that. You probably have never thought that. So we have to get into the mind of Pharaoh. When he's talking about this, he's talking about this is attractive for food. It's exactly what we want in our cows, to be well fed, to be plump, to be ready to be turned into hamburger and steaks. And that's what he was thinking. And now you are too, right? Let's continue reading. And they fed in the reed grass. And behold, 7 other cows, ugly and thin, came up out of the Nile after them and stood by the other cows on the bank of the Nile. And the ugly cows, the ugly thin cows, ate up the 7 attractive plump cows, and Pharaoh awoke. And he fell asleep and dreamed a second time. And behold, 7 ears of grain, plump and good, were growing on one stalk. And behold, after them sprouted 7 ears, thin and blighted or scorched by the east wind. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 plump full ears. And Pharaoh awoke. Behold, it was a dream. So in the morning his spirit was troubled. And he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Let's stop for just a second. Okay, God once again is using a dream to get the attention of someone in his plan. Okay, remember, he used the dream he gave to Joseph. And I believe he used this dream over and over and over again in Joseph's life. Joseph is going through incredible torment, incredible suffering. And what does God do? He keeps reminding him of the dream. Joseph, look where this ends. Joseph, get your eyes off of what's the here and now and look at the prize that lies ahead. He did that for the chief baker and the cupbearer. He disturbed them in the night with the dream to the extent that they couldn't just pass it off. It's just a dream, let it go. They couldn't get over it. And as a result, Joseph was able to interpret those dreams for them. And now we come to Pharaoh. Once again, the same thing is happening. Pharaoh is greatly troubled by a dream. It's just a dream, Pharaoh. Get over it. I can't get over it. This is something important. Something is going on. I've got to find out the meaning of this dream. And what does he do? He goes to all of his magicians, his wise men. And they come in with all of their ability to interpret, and they have nothing. Nothing. Can't tell you anything about it, Pharaoh. I don't know. Let's keep reading, verse 9. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, I remember my offense today. When Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, we dreamed on the same night, he and I, each having a dream with its own interpretation. A young Hebrew, I want you to pay attention to these words here. A young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. When we told him, he interpreted our dreams to us, giving an interpretation to each man according to his dream. As he interpreted to us, so it came about. I was restored to my office. The baker was hanged. Now, the words I asked you to pay attention to, I want to read those again to you. A young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. It's interesting, the terminology that the cupbearer uses to describe Joseph. I mean, he could have easily said, there was a guy in jail with us. God was with him. It was obvious God was with him. We told him our dreams after being so troubled, and he gave us the interpretation. But instead, it appears that in this particular setting, the cupbearer is very intimidated by what is happening and what he has to tell Pharaoh. And so as a result, instead of just spouting it out, there's a guy in prison with us, he begins to belittle Joseph. Okay, he calls him a young guy. Now this time, Joseph is now 30 years old. He's been in Egypt now for 13 years. Started when he was 17. He's now 30 years old. And he's calling him a young man. He's not necessarily a young man anymore. Maybe in relationship to the age of Pharaoh or to the cupbearer, maybe to the wise men. But he's not really a young man anymore. But he still uses that terminology to belittle Joseph, to put him down. He's just a kid in there. And then he goes on to say, and he's a Hebrew. Oh my goodness, Pharaoh, he's not even one of us. I mean, he's not even of the line of the Egyptians. He is a Hebrew. He's not really even worth mentioning. If it wasn't that you had a dream, I wouldn't even bring him up to you here. And then he adds one more thing. He said he is a servant of the captain of the guard. He's a servant to Potiphar. Servant. He's certainly not royalty. He's certainly not someone who could normally be even brought into your presence, Pharaoh. You are so great and so mighty and so powerful. He shouldn't even be brought before you. And he's just this little kid who's a Hebrew and a servant. And I wouldn't even mention him to you if you hadn't had this dream. In my mind, I was trying to rationalize this thought, and in my mind, I feel that the cupbearer was very much aware of his failure. He even mentions that. And he is somewhat intimidated by what Pharaoh is going to say to him. Maybe he's intimidated because you let an innocent man stay in prison. Buddy, you're going to change places with him. Maybe he's intimidated because if I tell Pharaoh about this Hebrew kid, he may just say, you want to bring somebody like that to me? Man, you're crazy. Take his head off. Either could have been reality for the cupbearer. But anyway, we take it, he was very much intimidated by what he thought Pharaoh might say to him. Let's continue reading. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they quickly brought him out of the pit. When he had shaved himself and changed his clothes, he came in before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Okay, now let's stop for just a second. This isn't really the place I wanted to pause, but I'm going to anyway. Because Pharaoh is setting Joseph up here. Essentially, what Pharaoh is saying, if you can do what I've heard you can do, then when this is all said and done, buddy, you're going to be set. If you can accomplish and relieve my mind of the stress of this dream, you can rest assured you're not going back to the jail cell. Now, with that ringing in his ears, Joseph, knowing the intent of the discussion, what does he say? Oh, yeah, that's me. I'm the one that can do it. No. Let's read on. Joseph answered Pharaoh, verse 16, it is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. God is going to favor you with a response. Okay. I'm not the guy you think I am, Pharaoh. I just love that about Joseph. Such character. I mean, here he can set himself up. He can protect his future. In being very blunt and very bold before Pharaoh, he may be destroying the whole thing. Pharaoh may have said, well, then you're not the person I thought you were. Get him out of here. But Joseph then goes on, after saying, I'm not that guy, that's not in me, to say something that was very dangerous before Pharaoh. You got to remember, Pharaoh believes himself to be God. The magicians and the wise men believe themselves to be talking on behalf of God. Okay, they have a lot of gods in Egypt. And Pharaoh believes himself to be the head God. And all of these people who are under his domain are looking to him as God. And what does Joseph say? Joseph doesn't say a God will reveal to Pharaoh. He doesn't say one of the gods is going to give you a favorable answer. But he very simply says, one God, the God. God, not you, not your magicians, not your thousands of other gods, the God is going to give you favorable response. Now, Pharaoh could have certainly taken offense to that. What do you mean? What are you saying, Joseph? You little runt. Do you not know who I am? But God had the attention of Pharaoh through his dreams. And God brought Joseph through slavery, through imprisonment, through betrayal, to a place to where now he is able to boldly stand before Pharaoh, recognizing that God is with him. You say what you want to about me. Cupbearer, you belittle me if you want to. You trash talk me if you want to. But ultimately, God is the one who holds my future in his hands, not you. So you talk about me all you want to. It doesn't matter to me. You say whatever you want to say about me. God holds my future, and God has given me something to say, and I will say it exactly as he has given it to me. I love that about Joseph. Let's read on. Verse 17. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, behold, in my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile. 7 cows, plump and attractive, came up out of the Nile and fed in the reed grass. 7 other cows came up after them, poor and very ugly and thin, such as I had never seen in all the land of Egypt. Never seen scrawny, disgusting cows like this. And the thin, ugly cows ate up the first 7 plump cows. But when they had eaten them, no one would have known that they had eaten them, for they were still as ugly as at the beginning. Then I awoke. I also saw in my dream 7 ears growing on one stalk, full and good. 7 ears withered and thin and blighted or scorched by the east wind, sprouted after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 good ears. I told it to the magicians, but there was no one who could explain it to me. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, and I want you to hear these words very carefully. The dreams of Pharaoh are one. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. Okay, there is a purpose for the repetition of your dreams. Yes, they involve different elements. One's cow, one's a grain, but they are telling you the exact same thing. It's easy to see the relationship here. One is telling you one thing, the second is telling you the exact same thing. The repetition is for emphasis. But then he says, God has revealed this. There's such a divine origin of what's being said. Pharaoh, thinking himself to be God, does not have the ability to control this dream. It was not put there by a man. It wasn't based on something he ate last night. God had given him a dream, and now God is going to reveal that to him. The final part of this is prophetic in nature. He says God is going to reveal to Pharaoh what he is about to do. Not what he has done. That's easy to tell. But what he's about to do. Now, last week I made a statement that I've thought about, I've rehearsed. Sometimes when you're up here talking, you're talking off the cuff a little bit. Things come out that if you could think about it a little more detail, you may not say. And this is probably one of those things because there could be chaos or turmoil in our minds over it. I said Joseph is not a prophet. But here he is telling of prophetic events. You may say, well, I believe he's very much a prophet. And if you feel that way, we're not going to argue over it, I promise. There's a good case to be made that he is. My way of thinking, just to explain where my head is, my way of thinking is that when God would speak to the prophets, God would tell the prophet what he's about to do. The prophet then would tell the people. Who is it that God told what he's about to do? He didn't tell Joseph. He told Pharaoh. Now, I don't believe for a minute that Pharaoh became a prophet of God. I don't believe that. But God still gave him the information. Joseph just came in and explained it to him. Now, like I say, it's neither here nor there. It doesn't have any bearing on the story. But since I mentioned that last week, I thought it good just to explain myself. Let's continue reading, verse 26. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears, blighted by the east wind, are also 7 years of famine. It is as I told Pharaoh. God has shown to Pharaoh what he is about to do. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout the land of Egypt. But after them, there will arise 7 years of famine. And all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land. The plenty will be unknown in the land by reason of the famine that will follow, for it will be severe. And the doubling of Pharaoh's dream means that the thing is fixed by God. Listen to that. Fixed by God, and God will shortly bring it about. It is fixed by God. Once again, we find Joseph getting into some very dangerous territory. This is fixed by God. It is determined. It is appointed. It will not change. Pharaoh, you consider yourself to be God. You can't fix this. You can't change it. You have no say and no bearing over what's about to happen. This is the work of God that's going on. You are not in control of this. You consider yourself to always be in control of what's happening. You have no ability in this whatsoever. You are irrelevant to this situation. God is going to bring about that which He tells us will come in the future. The God. The God. Let's read on. Verse 33. Now therefore let Pharaoh select. Joseph is telling him a plan. Here's what we're going to do, or here's what you should do. Let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land and take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plentiful years, and let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming and store up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. And that food shall be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through the famine. This proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find a man like this in whom is the Spirit of God?" Can we find anyone like? I love that just as Potiphar had seen in Joseph, just as the 2 men who received the interpretation of their dream in jail had seen in Joseph, now Pharaoh is also seeing in Joseph, God is with this guy. Hey, there's something different about this man. He's gone through all of these things, and yet here he comes out with boldness standing before me. You don't come and stand before Pharaoh with boldness ever. And here he is telling me the answer to my dreams. Wow. It says, Joseph, I don't think we can find anyone like you in whom is the Spirit of God. I also think it's interesting the plan that Joseph lays out now. He's telling us God has a plan for the future. This is what God is going to do. You can rest assured this is going to happen. 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. The 7 years of famine are going to eat up everything that the 7 years of plenty had produced. So here's what you need to do. And he laid out step by step. You need to get a wise, discerning man. I don't believe for a minute Joseph thought, hey, that's going to be me. Because he was a Hebrew. That was a very belittling thing. We're going to see in a few minutes that Pharaoh changes his name because of that very thing. He was a Hebrew. So he wasn't saying, I think I need to be that guy. But he begins to lay out this plan for Pharaoh. The interesting part to me is he doesn't say, Pharaoh, God's got a plan. Just sit back and watch. But essentially what he is saying, Pharaoh, God has a plan. You need to listen and learn where God is working, and then you need to get actively involved in it. Did you know God is telling us the same thing? We are a church that is greatly blessed to have God working in our congregation. I mean, we are greatly blessed to see how God is working through our church family. In 2 weeks, I believe it is, 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to hear from Zach Wyatt and Van Ferguson, 2 of our missionaries here in the local area. And they're going to be telling us of what God is doing in ministry. And I tell you what, you may have heard parts of it already. It's astounding. It's incredible to see how God is at work in these things. One of the things we as a church need to be listening for is, where's God working? There's where God's working. How can we be involved in that? Because we are not to be passive in times like this. God has not called us to be believers who sit on the sideline and say, well, let's watch God work. Go ahead, God, we're cheering you on. No, it's God, what are you doing? How can I be involved in that? We need to be aggressively praying. We need to be aggressively giving. We need to be aggressively sharing through these times. We need to find where God is at work, and we need to get involved in it. Joseph said, now is not the time to be passive, Pharaoh. Here's a plan. Let's get at it. verse 39. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has shown you all of this, there is none so discerning and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. So, God had brought Joseph through some incredibly hard things. God wasn't so concerned about his comfort as he was preparing him for what was to come next. God had prepared him and equipped him to where now as he stands before Pharaoh, Pharaoh says, you know what? I see it in you. God is with you. No one could be as wise as you are, man. You're the guy. You're the guy. I'm putting you over everything. You're going to be second in command of all of Egypt. But you need to understand something. This wasn't total fulfillment for Joseph yet. Joseph can see his dream becoming reality. He's in prison. He's a slave. There's no way for that dream he had of his family coming and seeing him in an exalted place and bowing down before him. That's not going to happen as a slave or in prison. But now all of a sudden he's been elevated by Pharaoh. Could this be the dream coming to be? And yet this is not total recovery for Joseph yet. Let me just show you three things. I'll show you two and read a little bit more and give you the third one. Number one, he wasn't home. I mean, just a few years ago, Joseph was living with his family as the favored son of his father. Now, there was a lot of dysfunction in that family, but it was his family. He was home. He was there with his dad. Now, second thing is that Joseph is serving the wrong person. Okay, he's not home. He's serving the wrong person. You say, well, he was serving Potiphar. He was a slave in his house, and then he was a slave in the prison. But now he's free. But I would submit to you that that's not exactly true just yet. That he is still a slave to Potiphar. Potiphar said, I have set you over this. I have told you, you're going to complete this plan you've laid out. Later on, another study down the road, probably 3 studies from now, Joseph goes to Pharaoh. His dad has died, and he says, would you allow me to take his body to Shechem and bury him with our ancestors? Would you allow me to do that? And Pharaoh says, well, how long are you going to be gone? And he tells him, and he says, okay, you go and you come back. So he's still not free to do as he pleases. He is still under the thumb of Pharaoh. It's ironic that he's been released from prison, and yet in so many ways he is still a slave to Pharaoh. He was home serving his father, and while he had to do what his father told him to do, he was very much free to come and go as he pleased. But now he is living under Pharaoh. Let me read a little bit more and then tell you the third thing. Verse 42. Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and clothed him in garments of fine linen, put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him ride in the second chariot, in such a place of honor, such a place of authority, second in control of the land. And they called out before him, bow the knee. This is an important person. You bow down before him. Bow the knee. And thus he set him over all the land of Egypt. Moreover, Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh. Without your consent, no one will lift up a hand or a foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh called Joseph, listen to this, called Joseph Zaphenath Paneah. Okay, what's significant about that? Pharaoh gives Joseph another name to hide or mask his Hebrew identity. Okay, so Pharaoh is trying to separate Joseph from the people of God. Pharaoh is trying to separate Joseph because it would be an insult for Joseph to be in the land over the Egyptians. He's not even an Egyptian. He's a slave Why have you got him over us? There would have possibly been an uprising. Now, Pharaoh would have quickly rubbed that out. But to save face here, Pharaoh says, I'm giving you an Egyptian name. He doesn't have his Hebrew identity anymore. Let's read on. Second part of verse 45. And he gave him in marriage Asenath, the daughter of Potipherah, priest of On. So Joseph went out over the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt. During the 7 plentiful years, the earth produced abundantly. And he gathered all the food of those 7 years which occurred in the land of Egypt and put the food in the cities. He put in every city the food from the fields around it. And Joseph stored up grain in great abundance, like the sand of the sea, until he ceased to measure it, for it could not be measured, so much. Before the year of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph. Asenath, the daughter of Potipherah, priest of On, bore them to him. Joseph called the name of his firstborn Manasseh, for, he said, God has made me forget all my hardships and all my family's house. Now, he's not saying God's made me forget my family. We see later that he very much remembers his family. But what he's saying is, God has made me forget the trauma and the pain that came as a result of what my family did. In other words, I am not bitter. I am not seeking revenge. I'm not looking for an opportunity to go and get those boys. You know, one way I know for certain that he wasn't out for revenge is because the scriptures never tell us that he went back to Potiphar's house. I got to tell you something. I'm just going to be transparent with you for a second. But if I'd gotten that position, the first door I would have knocked on was Potiphar's. You bring that woman out here. You lied about me. I spent years